After finishing off 2024 on a high note, we were all patiently waiting to see what January would have in store. And what we saw was that the buyer demand that had gained momentum in October, November, and December did carry through into January, and we had a very active month in terms of buyers writing offers. What we also saw, though, that was surprising was how quickly sellers rebounded and got back into the marketplace. In fact, the number of homes newly listed for sale in the month of January was up 46% relative to the same time last year. So what are the dynamics at play here and how is this impacting prices? I'm Adina with Adina YVR Vancouver Real Estate Group and Oakland Realty here with your February 2025 market update. Let's jump right into the numbers and take a look at what's happening. Let's start off looking at sales. In the month of January, we had just over 1,550 home sales reported on the MLS for Greater Vancouver. This is down 12% relative to December, but it's up 9% relative to this time last year, and that's just 11% below the 10-year sales average for the month of January. By property type, we see that the most active segment and the largest gains were in the apartment condo segment, where we had 846 sales in the month of January. That's up 13.5% relative to January of last year. Attached townhomes and duplexes were next in line with 321 sales in the month of January, and that was up 12.5% relative to January of last year. And finally, we have the detached segment where we had 380 sales, and that's an increase of just 0.3% relative from January last year. And while this increase in sales was somewhat expected given the momentum we saw in the last quarter of last year, what wasn't expected is how quickly sellers would be jumping back into the marketplace. We had just over 5,560 homes newly listed for sale on the MLS in Metro Vancouver in the month of January. This is up almost 47% relative to the same time last year. And this represents an increase of 31% relative to the 10-year sales average for the month of January. This brought our total inventory levels in Metro Vancouver to just under 11,500 homes. And this is an increase of 5% relative to December, yet it's an increase of 33% relative to this time last year, and it's a 33% increase over the 10-year sales average for the month of January. However, the number of homes currently listed for sale is still notably lower than we were seeing in the fall market. For example, in the month of October, when we saw listings peak at almost 15,000 homes, we're still 23% below that now relative to that October number. So how is all of this impacting prices? To understand that, we want to look at our leading indicator, which is our sales to active listings ratio. And this simply looks at the number of sales in a given month divided by the active listings left over at the end of that month. And it's this balance between supply and demand that shows us where prices are headed. When this ratio is below 12% for a sustained period of time, we're typically in buyer's market conditions and prices are on their way down. And when this ratio is above 21% for a sustained period of time, we're typically in seller's market conditions and prices are on their way up. So where are we right now? In the month of January, our sales to active listings ratio was 14%. So this puts us right on the cusp of a balanced market to a buyer's market territory. And this is down relative to December when it was 17%, and it's also lower than we saw this time last year in January where we were just above 17%. Looking at this by property type, we see the ratio is currently in buyer's market territory for detached homes at 9.2%, and this is down from 12.1% in December. For attached townhomes and duplexes, the ratio is currently 18.5%, so balanced market territory, and this is down from 23.5% in December when it was in seller's market territory. And for apartment condos, the ratio is currently 16.5%, putting it right in balanced market territory, and it's also down a little bit from December when it was at 18.7%, still in balanced market territory. If this ratio continues to remain in balanced market territory for a few more months, we expect to see prices stabilize. But if this ratio between supply and demand changes, that's when we'll start seeing changes in prices again. Of course, the big question on everyone's mind right now is how are the tariffs going to impact our market? And really, that's unclear right now. While we wish you had a crystal ball, it's really hard to know what impact that's going to have, because it could impact the market in different ways. In some sense, it could weaken buyer demand as buyers become more hesitant about going into the market in uncertain conditions. But uncertain market and economic conditions can also cause sellers to pull back. And if we see a decline in that inventory, that's typically when the market starts strengthening and picking up again. So unfortunately right now, it's just too early to tell what impact this is going to have on our market and if these are actually going to come into play. Tariffs aside, what we're seeing right now in the market indicates that we should see balanced market conditions for the next few months, and we should see stability and possible slight price increases in the year to come. So where exactly are we at with prices right now? Well, the HPI composite benchmark price for all property types in Metro Vancouver is currently $1,173,000. And this is almost unchanged relative to December. It's up just 0.1%. And it's almost unchanged relative to January of last year. We're up just 0.5% relative to then. Looking at this by property type, we see that the HPI benchmark price for detached homes is currently $2,005,400. This is a 0.4% increase relative to December, and it's a 3% increase relative to January last year. For attached townhomes and duplexes, the HPI benchmark price is currently $1,105,600, and this is down 0.8% relative to December, yet it's still an increase of 2.7% relative to January last year. For condo apartments, the HPI benchmark price is currently $748,100. This represents a decrease of 0.2% relative to December, and it's a decrease of 1.7% relative to January last year. While it's still too early to predict exactly where the spring market will take us, my hunch is that we're going to continue to see inventory levels increase, and it's going to be a really healthy, balanced market where buyers actually have selection of homes to choose from and the ability to negotiate. The key indicator that we need to watch very closely in the next few months is those inventory levels and the pace of new listings coming onto the marketplace. And of course, the wild card is the tariffs and what happens between Canada and the US. If you're thinking of making a move and would like to discuss your options, you can schedule a consultation by clicking the link down below here on YouTube, or you can click the link in my bio on Instagram. And in the meantime, to stay up to date with what's happening in the market, be sure to follow me by subscribing here on YouTube, or you can follow me on Instagram at adina.yvr. Have a great rest of the month, and I can't wait to see you in March.